It was 3:47 a.m. on February 2nd, 2026. The USS Bruins was cloaked in the cold darkness of the Arabian night when the radar operator's eyes caught something that didn't belong. At first, just a few scattered blips flickered on the AN SPY 1D radar screen. Small, fleeting signatures slipping out from the shadows along the Iranian coastline near Bandar Abbas. One cluster appeared, then another, then a third. Like a storm gathering unseen, the screen began to fill. Dozens of small, fast-moving vessels all closing in, converging on the narrow choke point of the Strait of Hormuz, right where the American destroyer was quietly patrolling. The officer of the deck's voice broke the silence. Two words that would haunt every corridor and every sailor on board for hours to come. "Captain, radar." Captain Sarah Mitchell had barely been asleep, less than 90 minutes, when that call came. In her 23 years serving the Navy, she had learned this hard truth. Real emergencies never arrive at convenient times. They come when your body is at its weakest, when your mind is fogged and your instincts dulled. They come when every second counts the most. She was on the bridge in 4 minutes flat, her uniform hurriedly buttoned, eyes still adjusting to the ghostly red glow of the combat lights that bathed the ship. What she saw made her stomach knot. The contacts were multiplying at an alarming rate. What started as maybe 30 vessels was now pushing 70. By 3:58 a.m., the radar tracked 107 distinct contacts, small, fast boats racing toward the USS Bruins from every direction. Their approach wasn't random. It was a deadly choreography, a tightening noose designed to surround, overwhelm, and destroy. This was no casual show of force. This was no mere warning. This was the textbook opening salvo of an IRGC Navy swarm attack. The nightmare every American naval commander in the Gulf prepares for, but prays they never face. The timing wasn't accidental. Just 2 days before, Iran had announced live-fire exercises in the Strait of Hormuz, dangerously close to the narrow shipping lanes where nearly 20% of the world's oil pulses daily. The U.S. Central Command had issued a blunt warning. Aggressive IRGC maneuvers, especially high-speed approaches on collision courses or weapons trained on American forces, would not be tolerated. Now, in the eerie stillness of the night, that warning was about to be put to the ultimate test. Captain Mitchell understood instantly what was unfolding. For decades, the IRGC had honed these swarm tactics, asymmetric warfare born from bitter lessons, like Operation Praying Mantis in 1988, when American forces crushed an Iranian flotilla in a single day of combat. The Iranians had learned, matching the U.S. Navy's firepower ship for ship was suicide. So instead, they built a different kind of force. Hundreds, even thousands of small expendable vessels designed to flood defenses, to wear down the most advanced warships with sheer numbers. A speedboat might cost $20,000 to build, an insignificant price against the $2 million cost of a single missile launched to destroy it. The math was brutal. Attrition would favor the swarm. By 2026, estimates placed the IRGC's fleet between 3,000 and 5,000 vessels, ranging from basic Boston whaler-type speedboats to sleek, missile-armed craft capable of breaking 45 knots. Each crewed by 2 or 3 fiercely loyal young guardsmen, indoctrinated from childhood to embrace martyrdom as the highest honor. These boats bristled with weapons, heavy machine guns firing armor-piercing rounds at a blistering 600 rounds per minute, RPG-7 rocket launchers, 107mm rocket pods saturating the water with explosive fragments, and even anti-tank guided missiles capable of punching holes in the hull of a destroyer if they hit just right. Their battle plan was simple and terrifying. Instead of attacking from one direction, allowing American defenses to focus fire, the swarm would strike simultaneously from every angle, overwhelming sensor arrays and gun mounts alike. 20 boats from the north, 30 from the east, 40 from the south. A relentless tide of steel and fury converging all at once, creating a swirling, deadly storm that no fire control system, no matter how advanced, could hope to stop. This wasn't about sinking the USS Bruins on the first strike. No, the real mission was far more insidious: to inflict just enough damage, claim enough lives, and sow such chaos that the American people would demand their navy pull back from the Persian Gulf altogether. It was a cruel echo of history, the same ruthless logic behind the suicide bombing of the USS Cole in Aden Harbor back in October 2000. Two men in a small boat, packed with hundreds of pounds of explosives, had shattered that quiet morning, killing 17 sailors, nearly sinking a billion-dollar guided missile destroyer. Now Commander Mitchell faced her own impossible choice, with less than 90 seconds to act, a decision that could either prevent catastrophe or ignite a war. The rules of engagement were clear, but they were far from simple. American warships in international waters have the undeniable right to defend themselves. But what counted as hostile intent? Was it 100 boats racing at high speed? Absolutely threatening. Was it weapons trained on American sailors? That was a red line, one that couldn't be crossed. Yet in the darkness, with only radar to guide her, Mitchell faced a grim uncertainty. Were those weapons aimed at the Spruans or merely mounted on deck? The fog of war didn't settle on the sea. It clouded the commander's mind, forcing her to interpret shadows and signals under unbearable pressure. At 4:03 a.m., the radio crackled to life on Channel 16, the international distress and calling frequency that every vessel is required to monitor. Unidentified vessels approaching USS Bruins. This is Warship 111. You are approaching a United States naval vessel. State your intentions. Over. Static. No answer. The call was repeated, this time in Farsi, Iran's official language. Still silence. This was no surprise. The IRGC had a long history of ignoring such warnings, pressing forward until American ships were forced to respond with escalating force. At 4:06 a.m., Commander Mitchell made the call. General quarters. The ship's PA system screamed the alarm, a sound seared into every sailor's soul. General quarters! General quarters! All hands man your battle stations! This is not a drill! From every corner of the USS Bruins, sailors dropped what they were doing, scrambling to their posts. Watertight doors slammed shut, sealing the ship against the coming storm. Damage control teams readied firefighting gear. Deep in the hull, the Combat Information Center hummed with controlled chaos. Officers and enlisted crew took their places at consoles, eyes glued to radar tracks, electronic warfare readouts, and weapon status. The USS Bruins was no longer a peacetime patrol vessel. She was becoming a warship, primed for battle. At her core was the legendary Aegis combat system, a seamless web of sensors, computers, and weapons engineered to track and destroy more than 100 targets at once. Her SPY-1D phased array radar scanned the skies and seas without pause, updating dozens of times each second. But even this marvel of technology was built to face missiles, not a swarm of small, lightning-fast boats. The radar could track the speedboats, but the fire control solutions, fine-tuned for supersonic missiles, stumbled against targets skimming the water at 45 knots. For close-in defense, the Bruins relied on a layered shield of firepower. At the outer edge, the Mark 45 5-inch naval gun roared, a relentless cannon firing 70-pound shells up to 15 miles away at 20 rounds per minute. Against small boats, it was devastating, but not surgical. This gun was meant to bring down frigates and destroyers, not darting speedboats with radar signatures smaller than seabirds. Next came the two Mark 38 25mm chain guns, mounted fore and aft. Accurate, automatic, deadly. These could engage small craft at ranges up to 2,500 meters, but with limited ammunition and only able to target one enemy at a time. The final line of defense was the Phalanx close-in weapon system, a device sailors affectionately called R2-D2 because of its iconic white dome, reminiscent of the famous Star Wars droid. This wasn't just a nickname. The Phalanx was a beast, a radar-guided 20mm Vulcan cannon capable of unleashing a furious storm of 4,500 tungsten penetrator rounds per minute. It spat death at anything that breached the outer layers of defense. The Block 1B variant on the Spruans had been specially upgraded to counter surface threats like these small, fast boats. Its Cuban radar could detect and lock onto lightning-quick targets within close range, and its automated fire control system could engage without a single human pulling the trigger. A relentless sentinel ready to defend the ship. But it came with a brutal limitation. Only 1,550 rounds in its drum magazine, enough for about 20 seconds of continuous fire. Against a swarm numbering 100 boats, those precious seconds would need to be wielded with ruthless precision. Beyond the ship's formidable onboard defenses, Commander Mitchell had other tools at her disposal. Two MH-60R Seahawk helicopters rested on the flight deck, each armed with 4 AGM-114 Hellfire missiles and a mounted M240 machine gun. These airborne hunters could strike from afar, picking off enemy boats before they got too close. But helicopters took precious time to launch, time she might not have. The ship's crew-served .50 caliber machine guns were another line of defense. Powerful weapons requiring sailors to man them out on exposed weather decks. Effective but deadly for the gunners who would be among the first targets in a mass attack. At 4:11 a.m., the leading edge of the swarm crossed the 5-mile threshold. Racing at nearly 40 knots, they would reach the Spruans in under 8 minutes. Commander Mitchell ordered the ship to come about, presenting its stern to the largest cluster of incoming boats. This classic defensive move allowed the aft phalanx and 25mm gun to engage, while the forward weapons covered other sectors. It was a calculated risk. Against a swarm closing from every direction, there was no perfect angle, only the least dangerous ones. At 4:12 a.m., the second radio warning blasted out, this time paired with 5 short, urgent blasts on the ship's horn, the universal signal for danger and doubt. Iranian vessels, this is USS Spruans. You are approaching a United States Navy warship. Your actions are unsafe and unprofessional. Alter course and speed immediately. If you continue your approach, defensive measures will be taken. Over. Broadcast in English, Farsi, and Arabic, the responses that trickled back were chilling. One voice, thick with accent and broken English, said coldly, "We are coming. Prepare to die." Another recited what sounded like a verse from the Quran. A third simply laughed. The psychological battle had begun. The Iranian commanders knew exactly what they were doing. They understood the tight constraints of American rules of engagement, the unyielding need for proportional response, the legal scrutiny and political fallout that would follow any first shot fired. By closing in without firing, by using their radios to taunt rather than their rockets, they could creep ever closer, skirting the edge of hostile intent, inching toward the USS Spruans while technically avoiding giving Mitchell the justification for a preemptive strike. It was a deadly game of chicken, hurtling through the night at 40 knots. At 4:14 a.m., Mitchell unleashed another layer of defense. Long-range acoustic devices, powerful speakers blasting warning messages and piercing deterrent tones at ear-shattering volumes. These LRADs could cause disorientation and pain up to 300 meters away, disrupting attackers without causing permanent harm. At the same time, she ordered the launch of warning flares, brilliant, blazing white magnesium streaks carving the night sky, illuminating the swarm and signaling that the Americans were watching and ready. The flares confirmed what the radar had warned. Dozens of small boats, most painted in the distinctive gray of the IRGC Navy, their crews silhouetted against the firelight, hands gripping weapons mounted on bows and sterns. The Iranian boats widened their formation, spreading out even more, flooding the space with targets far beyond what the American defensive systems could track and engage at once. This was the dispersed swarming tactic, a refined, ruthless strategy honed over decades of drills and simulations, now bearing down like a living storm on the USS Spruans. Rather than slam into the Spruans with a single overwhelming strike, the Iranian boats spread out, scattering their forces like a swarm of hornets designed to confuse, saturate, and overwhelm. Some boats zigzagged unpredictably, darting and weaving to throw off the ship's fire control systems. Others slowed briefly, letting their companions surge ahead, layering their assault in waves instead of one crushing blow. These were no ragtag militia or rusty fishing boats. These were professionals, hardened asymmetric warriors executing a cold, rehearsed plan to destroy. At 4:16 a.m., With the lead boats now inside the 3-mile threshold, Commander Mitchell faced the moment of truth. She had exhausted every non-lethal option. Radio warnings had been ignored or mocked. Horn blasts blown off like irritations. Flares and acoustic devices had failed to stop the approaching storm. Under international law and the standing U.S. rules of engagement, she had the right, indeed the duty, to use deadly force to defend her ship. But before crossing that final line, she took one last step. She ordered the forward 25mm gun to fire warning shots, rounds arcing into the dark water just ahead of the lead boats. The Mark 38 thundered to life, its chain-driven mechanism sending tracer rounds streaking like fiery warnings across the night, splashing down maybe 50 meters in front of the nearest vessel. The message was crystal clear: back off, or next time, you won't be spared. For a moment, maybe 3 seconds stretched into an eternity, the entire night held its breath. If the Iranians turned away, if they broke off and withdrew, this confrontation would end like so many before. Tough words, no blood. If even one boat pressed on, everything would shatter. The fragile peace, decades in the making, would vanish in an instant. The lead boat didn't hesitate. It accelerated, pushing its twin diesel engines to their screaming limit. Its bow rose, cutting through the waves at nearly 50 knots. The gunner manning the forward-mounted DSHKM heavy machine gun swung his weapon, locking on the Spruan's superstructure. At that moment, there was no room for interpretation. A weapon trained on a U.S. naval vessel was an unmistakable act of hostile intent. Commander Mitchell's voice was calm but resolute. Weapons free. The order unleashed the full fury of the Spruan's defenses. The forward phalanx came alive, its radar locking tight on the lead boat. Its 20mm Vulcan cannon screamed out a torrent of tungsten penetrators, 4,500 rounds per minute. The Iranian speedboat vanished in an instant, from a vessel carrying 3 young men prepared for martyrdom to a shattered cloud of fiberglass, burning fuel, and scattering human remains across the dark water. The entire engagement lasted less than 2 seconds, but behind it, 106 boats still surged forward. The night exploded into chaos. Rather than retreating, the swarm grew more ferocious. RPG-7 rocket launchers flared, their trails of fire arching through the night toward the USS Spruans. Most missed or fell short. The erratic flight of unguided rockets fired from speeding boats meant few would hit. But probability was a cold comfort when dozens came raining down simultaneously. Several rockets struck mere meters from the hull. One slammed into the ship's stern, its shaped charge detonating against reinforced steel, failing to breach, but shaking the ship violently. Then came the 107mm multiple rocket launchers mounted on larger Boghammer-class boats. Their 12-round salvos rained high-explosive fragmentation warheads, saturating the water with deadly shrapnel. The explosions sent towering columns of water skyward, some sprays dousing sailors on the weather decks, temporarily blinding gunners manning the .50 caliber machine guns. Amid the storm, Commander Mitchell's voice cut through the chaos, steady and commanding. All weapon stations, engage at will. Helm, ahead flank, come right to course 270. Get us out of this kill zone. The Spruan's 4 LM-2500 gas turbines screamed to full power, thrusting the 9,200-ton destroyer forward at over 30 knots. The ship heeled hard, its rudder digging into the sea as it carved distance from the densest concentration of attackers. Every weapon that could bear fired without pause. Above, the 2 MH-60R Seahawk helicopters, launched in the opening minutes of the battle, clawed for altitude, pilots lining up on the swarm. Each helicopter carried 4 Hellfire missiles, laser-guided precision weapons born to destroy tanks but deadly against small boats. At 4:18 a.m., the first Hellfire streaked from the rail, riding a laser beam to an Iranian speedboat straying too close to the Spruan's port quarter. The missile struck true, its 20-pound shaped charge vaporizing the craft and its 3-man crew instantly. 6 seconds later, the second missile launched, destroying another boat maneuvering behind the fleeing destroyer. But 8 missiles were never going to be enough. This was the cruel math of swarm warfare. American weapons were designed for precision and quality, each round or missile costing hundreds, sometimes thousands of times more than the targets they were meant to destroy. Iranian tactics exploited this harsh truth ruthlessly. If just one boat in 10 reached its target, the attack succeeded. If American forces burned through their limited missile supplies, destroying the first wave, they'd be vulnerable to the second and the third. The numbers favored the swarm. The deadly dance lasted 47 minutes, from the first warning shot at 4:16 a.m. until the last Iranian boats pulled back around 5:03 a.m. In that time, American forces destroyed or disabled 31 Iranian fast attack craft, killing an estimated 75 to 90 IRGC sailors. The USS Spruan sustained damage, multiple RPG hits pounding its hull and superstructure, and machine gun fire that killed 2 sailors and wounded 11 more. One MH-60R helicopter took a 12.7mm round through its tail rotor assembly and was forced into an emergency landing on the destroyer's flight deck, its crew unscathed. The forward phalanx had emptied its entire magazine and was still reloading when the swarm finally withdrew. The retreat was as sudden and mysterious as the attack itself. Around 5:01 a.m., a single command crackled over Iranian military radio nets. The surviving boats broke off their assault, racing back to the Iranian coast at full throttle. Whether the order came from IRGC Navy headquarters in Bandar Abbas, from Tehran, or a commander on the water who'd simply seen enough bloodshed, American intelligence could not determine. But one truth was clear: this was no rogue action, no spontaneous aggression by isolated elements. This was a deliberate, coordinated strike, planned, executed with precision, and ended before it could spiral out of control. What followed was a storm of diplomatic activity, matching the intensity of the battle. The Iranian Foreign Ministry claimed their navy had been conducting routine exercises in Iranian territorial waters, and that American forces had attacked without provocation. The Iranian statement was swift and unyielding. It demanded immediate compensation for the destroyed boats and called for the world to condemn what they called American aggression. Iran's ambassador to the United Nations pushed for an emergency Security Council session, declaring this an act of war against a sovereign nation. Across the ocean, the American response was equally swift and resolute. From the Pentagon and the White House, officials confirmed that the USS Bruins had exercised its undeniable right to self-defense in the face of a hostile swarm attack that cost the lives of 2 American sailors and wounded 11 more. The statement stressed that countless warnings had been given, that force had been measured, calibrated, and only used to protect the ship and her crew. President Trump was more direct in his message, posting on Truth Social, "Iran attacked our ship. Our sailors defended themselves. We didn't start this, but if they try again, we will finish it. The world is watching." The reaction from America's allies and regional partners was a mosaic of caution and conviction. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates stood firmly with the U.S., condemning Iranian provocations in international waters. Qatar and Oman, striving to mediate between Washington and Tehran, urged restraint on both sides, offering dialogue as a path forward. Turkey's President Erdogan criticized what he called an American overreaction, even as he condemned Iran's harassment of commercial shipping. Meanwhile, Israel's Prime Minister voiced unwavering solidarity with the United States, hinting that Israeli forces stood ready to support any American military response. As the world's eyes turned to the Strait of Hormuz, the oil markets reacted as they always did to turmoil in this vital choke point. Within hours, crude oil futures spiked 8%. Brent crude climbed to $95 a barrel before settling back to $91. Shipping companies announced temporary suspensions of tanker transits through the strait. Lloyd's of London raised insurance rates dramatically, adding millions of dollars in costs to moving oil from the Arabian Peninsula to markets in Asia and Europe. But perhaps the most striking outcome came in what did not happen. Iran held back. The IRGC launched no further attacks on American ships or regional targets. No missiles struck U.S. bases in Iraq or the Gulf states. The feared swarm of suicide drones never materialized. Instead, Iran waited, watched, calculated. It measured the world's response, weighing each move with the same cold, asymmetric precision that had defined its military strategy for decades. Some analysts read this restraint as weakness, a sign that the decisive American response had shattered the myth of Iranian swarm invincibility. Others saw something darker, a patient predator knowing it had achieved key objectives without triggering a full-scale war. Iran had demonstrated it could strike American naval forces in the Gulf at will. It had reminded the world that the Strait of Hormuz remained firmly under Iranian influence, despite the persistent presence of American warships. And it had exacted a toll, human lives lost, costs imposed, that would ripple through American decision-making for years to come. Among the dead were aviation boatswain's mate second class Michael Rodriguez, 24 from San Diego, California, and operations specialist third class Jennifer Chen, 22 from Houston, Texas. Rodriguez had been manning a .50 caliber machine gun when Iranian rounds tore through his position. Chen had been in the Combat Information Center, tracking hostile contacts when an RPG shattered the superstructure and detonated nearby. Their names joined a long, somber list of Americans lost in the Persian Gulf, stretching back through battles against the Houthis, the campaigns against Saddam Hussein, the tanker wars of the 1980s, all the way to the Marines killed in Beirut in 1983. For the families left behind, no amount of geopolitical analysis could fill the empty chairs at their dinner tables. For the 11 wounded, some carrying shrapnel deep in their bodies for the rest of their lives, the cost was measured in pain, in rehabilitation, in haunting nightmares. For the survivors, those who had watched their friends fall in the dark and fought off a swarm of attackers, the psychological scars might prove as enduring as any physical wound. War demands a toll, whether or not politicians choose to name it. In the end, the swarm attack of February 2nd, 2026 changed everything, and nothing. It didn't alter the bitter dance between America and Iran. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group remained on station in the Arabian Sea. Iran's nuclear ambitions marched forward. Protests that had brought the two nations to the edge were crushed, and the regime hardened its stance. The Strait of Hormuz remained a narrow artery for the world's energy, controlled by a nation that saw America as its greatest enemy. What changed was the cold, brutal knowledge, written in blood, that the next confrontation might not be limited to one destroyer and 100 speedboats. Next time, it might mean carriers, submarines, cruise missiles, nuclear facilities, ballistic warheads capable of obliterating cities. The attack on the Spruans had proved one thing beyond doubt. Iran was willing to accept losses, willing to sacrifice its young men for strategic gain, willing to escalate in ways American leaders had hoped would never come to pass. That grim reality would shadow every decision made in Washington and Tehran for years to come. And so, the USS Spruans limped toward Bahrain for repairs, her hull scarred, her crew mourning their dead and caring for the wounded. The Strait of Hormuz returned to its uneasy normal, tankers passing through waters that had seen death and might see it again. In Tehran, commanders dissected the battle, honing tactics for next time. In Washington, admirals and generals scrutinized weapons and personnel, searching for vulnerabilities. The dance continued. Commander Sarah Mitchell would later testify before Congress, answering questions from senators who had never stood watch on a bridge at 3 a.m., watching 100 boats close in for attack. She received the Navy Cross for extraordinary heroism under fire, joining a rare brotherhood of naval officers. But when asked by a reporter what she felt in that pivotal moment before giving the order to fire, she paused, long enough to remind the world that war is never simple. "I felt the weight of it," she said softly. "I felt every one of those Iranian sailors who were about to die, because they were ordered to die. And I felt every one of my sailors who would die if I waited too long to protect them. There were no good choices that night, only choices." The Strait of Hormuz flows on, indifferent to human tragedy. Ships pass through its narrow waters, carrying the oil that powers the world. Crews sail on, aware of the risks, yet committed to the mission. Beneath those dark waves lie the shattered hulls of 31 Iranian boats, the remains of young men who believed they were serving their country and their faith. In San Diego and Houston, two families learned to live with absence. The world watches, waits, waiting for the next crisis, the next confrontation, the next moment when a commander must decide between opening fire and holding back, And in the deep, restless currents of the strait, where the water never stills, if you listen closely, you can hear the echo of gunfire not yet fired.